Welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb,
And with me, Robbie.
and here we are after about a month off.
Yes.
We did plan to do some things during December, but let's be honest, we had a bit of a crazy a couple of months.
Yeah.
November kind of knocked us off because Robbie had his wedding
Yeah.
and his honeymoon and COVID.
Yeah. All in one. Yeah. Well, I didn't. My honeymoon was
COVID.
in my parents in laws one of the rooms sick with COVID. Contrary to popular belief, that was part of the delay. It was not that we were found on the Epstein logs. We have not gone into hiding for nefarious reasons. The timing was just bad, man.
No, his partner just bought him the world's weirdest escape room.
Yeah. Fun wedding present, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a hot minute since we've done an episode.
Yeah, we just had a lot going on. Christmas is also a busy time, and now we have flooding within our area of
Yes.
Gloucester, which has also prevented us from deciding to come together in the same place.
Yes. Mostly in my area. I mean, I went out last
Yeah, I'm
night.
fine. I'm not near
Knee high
water.
water. Yeah, I was knee high, man.
Yeah, crazy
So,
amounts of water. So we're both here in our pajamas, online from home. I'm in bed like one of the grandparents from Charlie and the Chocolate
yeah,
Factory.
you are. You are. Uh,
So yeah, we are here for the we're gonna review a little bit of the best of 2023 for us. This is films that we have either it's films we've watched for the first time. We haven't shoehorned ourselves to just like brand new films of 2023.
yeah.
Um, we wanted to talk about any film that we saw for the first time because there are some, I think, classics that we saw or some new ones that were just, we just loved as well. So we wanted to have a little time to reflect on that before we move into 2024.
Well, I mean, as always, if you've enjoyed the show, remember to hit that subscribe button and please leave us a lovely review. Got to get that cheap plug in there straight off. So,
Yeah,
what do you want to start with first, man? Should we
So,
start with?
well, let's go. Well, do you want to talk about what was one of
Yeah,
your best, your favorites of 2023?
yeah. So I actually did separate it into a couple of categories. So I
Okay.
did do two that I particularly watched this year in UK cinemas, or that were released in the UK this year that
Yeah.
I did really enjoy. There were so many films that were out this year, like Thanksgiving, Godzilla -1. There was a whole bunch of other stuff that I didn't get around to watching because
No.
from June onwards, May, the wedding planning really kind of came into it, and there was just not much time to go to the cinema. But one of the films that I did watch and really enjoyed was Talk to Me. So
Yeah.
I believe it was released in America last year or Australia last year, but we got it this year, so I am including it in my best of 2023. And it's a really interesting kind of Aussie thriller with this quite unique kind of storyline where they find this kind of weird like porcelain hand that they can use to effectively like be possessed momentarily by the dead, and then it's about this woman whose mum had passed away, and it's about how she kind of uses it to try and talk to her, but she doesn't close it off properly, so the barrier between dead and the living gets thinner, and they can swap over. And it was a really fun shot and really interesting story. It wasn't like an exceedingly long film, so it was quite an open and shut one. It had some really creepy moments. I've spoke about this on the podcast, but oftentimes when it talks about like eternal damnation and like afterlife and stuff like that, it really fucking terrifies me. And there were some shots in this that really got to me. I did think it was a bit let down by kind of a predictable ending, but I don't think that's not always a bad thing when it comes to films. They are going to be doing a sequel. I believe the same team are behind it. I'll go into that with a bit of trepidation, to be honest, because this hits me as that kind of film where it's like, we'll make one of them and it'll be really
Yeah.
good. And then when you try and get a sequel out of it, it might not have the legs to stand up on,
It should be a one and done.
Yeah.
This was on my list as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll jump here a little bit with the one and done. I definitely agree with. There are some horror films I just think they just don't need to keep being ran off and ran out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
in my head, I kind of related it a bit like something like the Babadook, where I'm like, the
Yeah.
Babadook, fantastic because it worked because you didn't know where it was going, you didn't quite know in the teases of the monster, but once you kind of push away from that, it will just start to feel very samey,
Yeah.
very, I don't quite know with certain horror films where you can go, and normally when they don't have somewhere to go, they really most of the time just screw it on a sequel, or
Yeah.
they ruin the lore of the whole story by overcomplicating it, and it just affects even the original film sometimes.
Yeah. No, I
Uh,
agree.
but no, I was really surprised by this. I'm not big supernatural horror fan, so some of them I think are really good, but this one surprised me. The short running time I think really helped keep it pacey.
Yeah.
You got what you needed to know about the characters. You know what I mean? They are mainly like kind of teens. You kind of have your different kind of assumptions of different teen characters, but not in a vague, like they're not stereotypical characters. They have some interesting parts to each of them, but it's not quite the point of it. It's what they see on the other side, which kind of
Yeah.
becomes. But it is the way it's slowly teased out throughout the film, and so when you get to those moments when they actually go into the other realm, they are properly scary. It is one of
Yeah.
the few films I think I watched this year where I can say that was actually scary.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, like for anyone, even proper horror fans, I think there were some truly chilling parts in that film. Um, no, that yeah, Talk to Me was definitely I think one of the surprising better ones, being I think it's a A24, but it was bought by A24, so it's
Yeah.
been made separately, independently, and then they brought it in, kind of thing. But no, that was really strong. Did you? Sorry, did you have anything else you want to say about Talk to Me?
No.
No.
No. That was me. Don't talk to me anymore.
Did you see that one in the cinema, or was that at
Yeah.
home? Yeah.
That was a cinema watch.
Okay, that probably
Yeah.
would have been good. I saw it at home. I saw it on old Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, it was a dead cinema as well. It was a really quiet cinema. But it was a real good experience. I know. I also went in knowing nothing. It was a very. I mean, I don't often watch the trailers anyway, but this was a film where I just saw. Oh, it's a horror film. Yeah, let's book it. I've heard people online say it's good, and then I was watching it, and I didn't even know it was about communicating with the dead or anything like that. So it was a real going blind film, and it
Yeah,
kind of made it better for that.
yeah, yeah. I haven't with my little 1 year old. I have not actually made it to the cinema very much at all this year. I think the only times, most of the times, I've been with you to see a horror film. Apart from that,
Yeah.
I have not. So anything we didn't see together as a horror film, I didn't see in the cinema. I'll go on to my one of my best of 20 and one of my favorites now. I'm going for a TV series, and that is The Fall of
Okay.
the House of Usher
Oh,
by
nice.
Mike Flanagan. I don't know if you've got around to watching that one yet. Um,
No.
no, but it was I've loved Mike Flanagan's other work anyway. I think I've seen everything but oh, I can't. I've suddenly blanked on what it is. The ones about the teenagers in the house that only lasted
Yeah,
for one, and then I can't
I
remember
know
what
the
it's
one.
called now. But
The
whatever it is,
Midnight Club or something.
yes, something like
Yeah.
that. But that wasn't like directly his in the same way. But I've loved all of his other stuff, and I love a bit of Edgar Allan Poe. So I was very
Yeah.
interested to see how it adapted it, and he takes a whole range of different stories, not just the story of the fall of the House of Usher, because that's only a short story, and he melds it into this modern world. But he really seems to have an understanding when it comes to writers of like just interpreting their work, but also making it his own or blending it with other things, like he
Yeah,
has with, say, like Doctor Sleep. I thought he perfectly blended Kubrick's vision with King's vision to make a
yeah,
really
definitely.
true Shining, if you see what I
Yeah,
mean. When because there are certain parts I love about Kubrick's Shining that is not quite, true to the books, and then there are things that King did better, and he somehow melded both of those together. It's like he just got it. He
yeah, he's
completely
a very
understood it.
smart filmmaker, isn't he?
Um, and
Great
Fall of the
vision.
House of Usher is the same. It's this weird blend of like modern kind of family, patriarchal kind of like they're kind of always fighting against each other over money and stuff like that. But it's blended with this weird, I'd almost say Final Destination or
Okay.
Omen style in the way that the deaths and things like that occur within the show and the way that it all plays out. Blended with this really interesting like look back at how did the Ushers come to be what they are kind of thing, and it's a
Yeah,
really interesting, but it has some truly horrific moments in it, like some truly bits that don't turn away. They just fully go in for it. Truly psychological parts to it that are really terrifying and scary. But the other thing is, it's just an entertaining watch. It wasn't. I didn't find it boring. It does have quite a lot of speeches, long kind of.
of course. Well, it's Mike
He's a bit
Flanagan.
known for that. He's a bit known for his kind of, going on and on. He almost does like a soliloquy in every like
Yeah,
part of an episode. Um, and it does have some bits for some people that might make them a little bit turned off because there is a little bit of maybe what some people might see as a bit preachy at times about the
yeah,
world and the communism and stuff like that, kind of the economy.
yeah.
But generally, I found it to be an engaging and just terror, and I do think it's possibly one of his best, if not my favorite of his series
Oh,
by the end.
yeah,
So I just truly found it interesting, and that is because he's fantastic with characters. Some characters you only get a short time with, and yet you truly learn to both love and loathe them at the same time. But no character's completely like hateable, and a lot of these characters
yeah,
could have easily been just like I fucking like why am I watching an episode on this character? They're just a dick. But he finds a way to make you kind of get them, even if it's by the end of their final moment. You're like, that person was shit, and yet they didn't deserve that at the same time.
yeah.
Except for one character, he deserved exactly what he gets.
I'm
I'll
gonna
let you
watch
watch.
it.
I'm not spoiling
Yeah,
anything. I'm just,
when it was released shortly before the wedding, like before we went
yeah,
over. So we downloaded some for the flight, and I was like, I don't want to watch this on the plane. And
yeah,
then there was no time when we were there, and it's just one of those things that we just haven't got around to watching yet.
no.
We're just watching too many like Harlan Coben things, which are just like twist after twist
Oh
of
yes,
like
yeah.
not very
The
well
Harlan
written.
Coben.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
they're
very
not
well
my.
written to
They're
me.
not. Charlotte just tried to get me to what I think there's a new one called "Fool Me Once" or something like that.
Literally finished
Sh-
it last night.
okay, Charlotte was like, "Oh, this one looks really good." She hasn't shown any interest in the other ones, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." The when I look at the trailers, I just in my head in the UK we have Channel 5, which a drama, and,
Yeah,
and that's what
it
I
is
think
challenging.
of. It's like cheap twist after twist, not always making a lot of sense, and then it's kind of I don't
Yeah.
know. I just don't like that style of drama. I can't get
It's
into
a bit, yeah, it is a bit Channel 5, but
it.
it has handsome Carl Froch, so it's just like we see handsome Carl Froch, we're like, we know what kind of like thing this is. It's
Yeah,
easy to watch.
yeah, I get
Um,
it.
there was a film that was, I think it was released also in maybe 2022, but we got it 2023, or at the very least, it was a staggered release. And we were originally going to cover it for the podcast, but we didn't.
Yeah.
And that was Last Voyage of the Demeter. That was another
Oh
film.
yeah.
I watched and I really
Oh,
quite
I
dug.
forgot. We watched that. We
Yeah,
watched it. We planned for the episode, and then it never had time to do it,
we
or
never
it
got around
got
to
pushed
it.
off. Yeah, we
Yeah,
backloaded episodes, and then we were like, we haven't got anywhere to fit Demeter, which is
yeah.
funny because anyone who does follow our podcast is like, well, you had space in December.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah, rip to our listeners, man. The last few that have stuck around.
They're hanging on
But
by thread.
yeah, yeah. So it was just a fun little like nautical creature feature, and it was based on that chapter from Dracula where he is sailing over, and it's the captain of the Demeter's log.
Yeah.
I know that we have a back and forth, and the Judgment Day of Cast Me to Hell will be when we cover Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, and in that film they cover the Demeter voyage in like a shot or a little montage, like a Rocky montage of him killing people. So it was interesting to see a film just about that. It might have been a little bit on the long side at times, but you had really good performances from Liam Cunningworth and Dave Dushman and another actor, but I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And it was just it was quite atmospheric. You had a lot of fog, and you had a lot of like quiet nighttime shots. It also featured some quite fun kills. Dracula's design was really interesting. It was kind of cool to see him more as this like almost like a weak, kind of feeble, weird monster, as opposed to this like really dashing, handsome Gary Oldman, suave Bela Lugosi kind of vibe.
Yeah, he looked like a proper monster, didn't he? He
Yeah,
actually looked like some kind of weird bat creature kind of thing.
yeah,
He didn't look like a suave man or a
yeah.
gorgeous kind of, or
A
whatever
gorgeous
Gary
punk.
Oldman was.
Yeah, a sexual man. And it was cool to see that. The CGI went between being like a bit schlocky and being quite cool, and the practical effects of the kind of winged Dracula was awesome. It really reminded me of those like kind of mid-budget horror films you got in the 90s and early 2000s that you don't seem to get as much these days. It didn't have the vibe of something being straight to video, but it did feel like something that would be like put out by like Miramax in the 90s.
Yeah, yeah, like a
Kind of like
Dracula 2000 or something like
yeah,
that kind
something like
of.
that. Yeah, like a mid-budget kind of film, and it was good. It
Yeah.
was enjoyable, man. It was one that I wanted to watch in the cinema, but yeah, again, things just fell through, and I think it was only in the cinema for like a weekend.
Well, it got properly pushed off, didn't it?
Yeah,
It did get delayed by quite a bit, and then they just couldn't find anywhere for it. And I think it lost its international backing. In fact, at one point, I think,
yeah,
yeah, it had a real trouble, so it kind of just all fell apart for the film, sadly.
yeah. I think it
Um,
bombed quite bad,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, it did.
Uh,
I think that didn't help. I think it probably didn't get a lot of help or public, kind of
oh, barely
production
any,
or any
any
advertising or
advertising.
anything.
Barely anything, man.
Yeah, no, it was a strong film. I think the only thing, as you said, is it fell apart a little bit because it went on a little for a film that you're stretching out a story. It felt like they let it run on a little bit longer than it needed to.
Yeah,
It had like a setup for a kind of sequel, obviously, where it's like hunting down, continuing to be as if he is the Van Helsing or something like that. As they
yeah.
kept the creatures created. Yeah,
I thought that ending was awesome as well. That's one
yeah.
thing that really made me smile was the ending, because I just thought of it made me feel like they nailed this kind of like sadistic side to Dracula, where he's just taunting this guy.
Yeah.
So I
I
really like
think
that ending.
yeah, I think the only thing that let it down at times is once the monster was fully revealed, when you went away from there was some practical, but there was a lot where they'd created him out of CGI.
Yeah,
That was the only thing that let it down at times, is when you were like, this is clearly just a CGI creature. And I don't know, there's a circ about that takes you out of it. It just makes you sometimes go, oh,
yeah,
it's not as scary when he's like that. When he doesn't look at all like real anymore, it starts to
yeah,
be like, I don't really fear him anymore. But
yeah.
it
No,
has
I agree.
some good jump scares, and it is quite a kind of slow burn
Yeah,
of
it
a
is.
film. The kills and
Surprisingly,
stuff are quite slow as well. They're
it's
quite
got like a
brutal.
2 hour long time. I think 2 hour
Yeah,
run time. Or
yeah.
something close to 2 hours.
You said
2 hour
2 hour
long time.
long time.
I
It'd be
did.
long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. My brain has just been corrupted. Um, any other of that were just released in 2023 for you?
um, I've got a knock at the cabin. M
Okay.
Night Shyamalan. Shyamalamalam.
Yeah, Shyamalan, the man
Malin
himself.
Shyamalan. Yeah, with Dave Bautista. in a role, and good old Rupert Grint.
Yeah, the great.
Ron
Oh yeah, I didn't
Weasley.
realize Rupert Grint was in it. Christ.
Yeah, he is in it as one of the kind of disciples of the world, or whatever it is. It's one with M Night. It's always a question of, is this going to be a interesting, good character study one, or is this going to be some bullshit preachy about the way the world is going and you've completely fucked
Yeah,
this up? You
and the
know,
plants are
am
behind
I
it.
getting a Sixth Sense or am I getting a The Happening? Which
Yeah,
one am I getting here? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I felt it's going to bullshit, but this one mainly is all takes place within like one kind of cabin. It is all mainly like it is pretty much the whole film is in there. Apart from that, the only outside stuff you get is mainly on a TV screen where they're showing it, and it is a properly investing kind of slow build of a film where you're like, are these mad people that are holding these
yeah,
people captured? It's two men and their adopted daughter in a cabin, and basically they're told that they need to decide the fate of the world. If they do something, then if they basically do this act, then they will save the world, is what they're saying. They
yeah,
will stop the apocalypse, is basically what they're trying to imply. And the whole thing is, are these mad people, or are they actually the truth? Are they actual some kind of disciples, or are they not?
yeah,
You know, as it gets weirder and things start to happen to the disciples again. I don't want to really spoil it because we're
yeah. I
trying
do
to
want to watch.
encourage people to go and watch these films if they haven't seen them. And if you get around to watching it, we never know which films we might end up covering one day. So I don't want to ruin it all
Yeah,
now. Um, but again, Batista again showing that he's actually quite probably the strongest of the wrestling actors that we have about
yeah, yeah,
from his recent work. Showing he can do more than just be Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy.
yeah,
And I don't know. It's just I was just interested the whole film. It drew me in. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I wanted to know if these people were real or are they fakes or why are they doing this? What's led them to do this? And you get little backstories of each of them of to why or how they came to be in this place.
yeah,
Again, one of the only parts that goes away for a moment, but it is really interesting where it leads, and it has a couple of like odd, like horrific scenes in it. So it is very much on that borderline of thriller horror kind of thing.
yeah,
But it's yeah, I was truly invested, and I didn't expect to be honest, because he is a mixed bag as a
yeah,
director. But his recent ones have been a little bit stronger than he did in the mid to late 2000s when he was a bit more kind of fucking
yeah. He
around with
went
his
way off,
reputation.
didn't he?
Yeah, but no, that was my one of my best and most surprising of that. And I don't really want to talk because we talked on the podcast. The only other one I was kind of going to slide in there was that I still believe the Exorcist Believer was not a truly bad film.
Yeah, defend it.
I don't think
Defend it.
it. We defended it a lot in our episode. And yes, it is controversial, and we both rewatched The Exorcist after fuck knows how
Yeah,
long this year, and you should check those episodes out. We both agreed that the original Exorcist is an outstanding film, and pretty much no sequel could ever live up to anything like that film because it was a one-off in its own way.
yeah,
It shouldn't have had any sequels, but if you take it away from that film, Exorcist Believer is still the strongest sequel I've ever seen of The Exorcist. And mainly, it was an interesting film in its own right without being an Exorcist sequel. So, yes, maybe it should have just not been called The Exorcist, but still,
yeah,
it worked. I still stand by that was maybe should have been, you know, um, you know, it wasn't a perfect film, but it felt like it had some kind of a bigger message on it mind, and not perfect, but to me also it was one of the better supernatural horrors I'd seen in a long time, alongside Talk to Me, which both of those are two that I've seen, which I feel like it's been a while since I've seen one that I really truly liked, supernatural wise.
yeah. I think I mean there was Cobwebs which came out, but I missed that. Um, there was
Yeah, I
like
heard
loads of
mixed stuff
yeah.
about
I heard
Cobwebs.
mixed stuff about it. But there was quite a lot of films that came out this year that I just didn't get around to watching. There was one called what was it called? Totally Killer, which I thought was fun. But then there was one, The Outwaters, that I missed. Thanksgiving, obviously, that we were really excited
We were
for.
disappointed to watch. I still haven't watched it, but
All me.
I do. I really want to watch it.
Yeah, Malignant as well. Oh no, that was one. That was That's a spoiler
22.
for later. I keep getting that name for some reason confused with Skinamarink.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. Because that was one that I heard mixed things about and wanted to watch. And Megan as well. I still haven't watched Megan. That came out earlier in the year.
Yeah, it was all right. I wasn't that big of a fan. I watched I watched the unrated version too, and I still thought, it was
Okay.
fun. It was
Well,
fun, but that's about it.
what
Did you
about what
first
about
time watches?
what about favorite first watches for the podcast?
So I'm gonna go with New York Ripper.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, not that it was. This isn't saying I thought it was a perfect, amazing film. But Lucio Fulci, we've had a little bit of we've had quite an Italian year.
we
We've
have.
covered quite a few. We've covered Suspiria, New York Ripper. We covered Burial Ground recently. And to a little hint for the next episode, we have Cannibal Holocaust, another
Yeah.
Italian-based horror. We've been getting into those kind of Italian horrors quite a bit, and before this year, I feel like I'd never really watched many of them ever.
And now you got the bug, man.
Yeah, got a bit of a bug for them because it's once, and you do have to get used to them. And New York Ripper was one of the earlier ones I'd watched, and this one will test you in terms of how much. Because one, there's the dubbing factor, the old
Yes.
giallo, of course, being a style within it is that kind of dubbing style, and you've got to get used to it. It's so weird and hilarious, New York Ripper, in both good ways and maybe bad ways.
Yeah, definitely. It's a
um,
very weird film.
yeah, it's provocative and it's violent. And yeah, I'm not saying it's a great film, but it's an interesting film. It's got it's got horror. It's got nudity if that's part of your horror love.
Yeah, that's for some
um,
people.
in weird ways as well. It's very odd, and it
Got
also
beaten
has a
off.
man who sounds like a duck when he's the murderer.
Yeah, it's
For
a
some,
weird film.
yeah, some talk about consumerism or throwing it in Disney's face for Donald Duck. I don't know, but
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a weird design choice.
no. We talked about it in an episode, which you can find by going to
Yeah,
any good streaming site. If they don't have us, they're shit.
yeah,
um,
they're awful.
but yeah, I really found it interesting. The kills but uh, as I said, right from the beginning, you will find there's a weird a guy that finds a dead body, and straight away you've got weird the dialogue is like, what the fuck did you just say? Like,
Oh,
what is
it's
going
weird
on
as hell.
here? But yeah, I don't want to go on about it, but go and look at the episode. It's an interesting watch, and I found it fun. And I think I enjoyed all of the Italian horrors we watched this year. So go and
Yeah.
check any of those out. On to you, Bobby. What's one of your first time watches?
So this was The Omen. I think I remember mentioning
Ah.
that this was the first time I'd seen the actual whole film itself.
Oh yeah.
Because I'd watched the remake, and I'd seen bits of the original Omen, but I'd never actually watched it. And rewatching it or watching it fully for the first time last year for the must see horror episode was just an incredible viewing experience. It was terrifying. It was incredibly well shot. The soundtrack was just mind blowing. It was an amazing film, and it was after watching it, it was real hard to get it out of my head. And I've been listening to the theme so much. I don't know why.
It's got an
So
amazing score.
yeah,
The film in
always
general is an
incredible.
amazing score. But yeah,
Yeah, but like I
well,
said,
yeah,
I won't go into too much depth because we did release an episode on it. But yeah, after watching it, it's hard to be convinced about other films being like top 10 horrors for me. I was watching it and I was like, I think of the must see horrors we've watched, that's probably the best one. And
yeah.
it's the best. It just sinks into my brain as being like one of the best horror movies of all time.
Yeah, I think talk like the Omen and also previously when I mentioned The Exorcist, I do think there's something about those two specific horror films that they are both made in such a well-made. It's a director making it like they are making a truly great film and not.
Yeah,
And there are some directors that make films, but they're like, I'm making a horror film. But in this case, they were just making, what you feel like a Godfather or
yeah,
a classic film. Regardless, they are ones that go beyond it. You know what I mean? If you're putting
yeah,
like 100 greatest films of all time, not even things, I think The Omen and The Exorcist deserve to be on those lists.
yeah. Because they have everything that makes a film great. Great writing, great direction, great visuals, amazing score, and then you have the added bonus of the foreboding, the creepiness, the themes
Yeah,
and the stakes that are there. It was just an incredible film, and it was such a
yeah.
good
And with
watch.
The Omens, the deaths. I just love that kind of death.
Yeah,
The preamble of the. I love any ones where it's like the foreshadows of the death kind of
yeah,
thing.
it's a
That's the fun of like something like Final Destination, but this was the original of that. This was the
yeah.
original, like this is how you do it when it's the devil doing it.
Yeah, and we've
Yeah.
got we've got a prequel coming out this year,
Oh
which
yes, we do.
we will hopefully get round to watching and actually try and fit it in, schedule it. I mean, I originally I heard about the first Omen, and I thought I don't know if we necessarily need that.
Yeah.
However, this might get us shot down as well. But after The Exorcist Believer, and seeing that was actually pretty well done, in our opinion, I'm kind of thinking, okay, maybe I can vibe with it. I already think I know it's probably going to happen because I've watched The Omen, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'll see. I'll enjoy the ride. I've found
Hopefully.
myself enjoying religious horror more.
Hopefully. I think it's a hard one to do, and they can be done well and they
Yeah,
can be done really poorly. I know there's trailers out there, but I've completely avoided any of the trailer for it. So I'm just going to go in with my own mind because I don't want to
yeah,
watch it
same.
because it will just give away everything. Um,
Yeah,
the only other one I was going to mention, I'll just sneak it in, but we did an episode on it, so we don't need to because I haven't really put many notes about it. Is I really like to Kill a Clown from Outer Space.
okay.
Never watched it before. We had a battle on this one where like, you didn't put it into your must see, whereas I
Yeah,
think it deserves because it's so different. It's so fun. You have people being turned into giant balls of candy floss
yeah,
or
it is a fun
contained in
film.
candy floss. I just generally, but then I've always loved the little manic, stuff like Gremlins, Creatures,
Yeah,
or the weird like the off charm of like a Leprechaun film or something like that. I kind of like those kind of tongue in their cheek, and this is like a mega tongue in cheek. Doesn't all
yes.
make sense. It looks weird at times, but I enjoyed the whole film nonstop. Go and check out the episode if you want to hear more on that one. Right, we said we're just gonna quickly kind of jump across, but disappointments of 2023, whether they're first watches or in the cinema, what disappointments were on your kind of lists?
I mean, I, we mentioned Five Nights at Freddy's, but I wasn't really going in with high expectations of that.
No.
So I actually only had one film that I would consider disappointing, and we watched it for the podcast, and that was Cujo. Um,
Yeah,
I
I had
watched it.
Cujo.
I thought it was kind of boring and kind of a drag. I don't
It
really have.
felt so
We
off.
did an episode. Yeah, it felt off. We did an episode about it, so I'm not
Yeah.
gonna go into massive swaths of
You
detail.
could
But
tell in the episode that we were kind of struggling with that one because it was a weird mash of like a family drama,
yeah,
unlikable characters, and then scenes that weren't really that scary that felt like they were just ripping off better shots of films like Vertigo or Psycho, like trying to make it into
yeah,
the dog. And it
it
generally
felt
just
like
didn't work.
imagine if like they in like the early 2000s they did like one of those late night EastEnders specials, and like
Yeah.
and Dean Gaffney's dog Wellard had just gone mental. That's what it was kind of like. Like
Yeah.
there was just massive amounts of like unnecessary drama about some dude's wife having an affair, and the dog is just just looking for a scrap, and then they just somehow get trapped in a car, and it's like, do I need to watch this for an hour and 45 minutes?
Yeah,
Like, no.
absolutely. I think
Short film, maybe.
if I generally, I've got to be honest, like, not, well, yeah, they were disappointments. I think generally, I've got to be honest, a lot of the ones we saw in the cinema this year, actually, I think were quite disappointment.
Okay, fair enough.
Scream 6 was a highlight, a good one,
Yeah, I
and
like that.
we enjoyed X's thing, but Saw X, good, okay, first two acts, terrible final act.
Oh, yeah, awful.
Five Nights at Freddy, disappointment for me, but again, I wasn't expecting that much like you.
No, all no.
Evil Dead Rise, it's a good film, but I couldn't say that I wasn't disappointed in some. There was just it just didn't quite live up to it for me, and because that one looked really good for me in the trailers, but it just didn't quite live up to it for me. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
yeah, I
I'm
could.
not saying it's a bad film. I'm just saying it was slightly for me a disappointment. And you said one that you thought was fun before, Totally Killer.
Yeah,
I really didn't vibe with it at all.
really.
I
I
thought
was
I'd find it
surprised.
fun, but I just thought no, it just didn't work for me. After kind of a fun opening and a very kind of violent scream like kind of
Yeah,
opening, once she goes back in time, it just kind of I thought it just fell apart a bit.
fair enough.
Um anyway, so those are some of the little disappointment parts. Just looking quickly to the new year, is there anything that you're kind of looking forward to in 2024?
I mean, the one that is obvious, if anybody's listened to the episode, is Maxine. I fucking loved X. I
Yeah,
can't. I still haven't got around to watching Pearl, but I can't wait.
I've been
And
telling you and
Maxine's gonna be
waiting for you to do that.
great.
But
I know.
we will do Pearl before Maxine.
Yeah, let's do Pearl in the next couple of weeks because I fucking loved X
Yeah,
and Pearl looked awesome. So Maxine's got to be great. Nosferatu with
Robert
Robert
Eggers.
Eggers looked
Yeah,
good. And then I don't know whether it's actually ever going to be released, but I finished the book just before the wedding of that Salem slot. I'd like to
yeah.
see that. Yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you've hit most of my big ones there. Like, I'm very excited about Maxine. That is probably one of my top of alongside Nosferatu, which is being released on Christmas Day this year. So we've got a long
Great.
wait for that one. But that one's got an amazing cast as well. Um, but it's weird because a lot of them aren't dated yet. Maxine isn't dated yet.
Yeah.
And also Toxic Avenger remake with Peter
Yeah.
Dinklage. I'm really excited. And we also have a new Alien by Fede Alvarez or Ede, or we've talked about that in the past, how we
Yeah,
can't
we
pronounce
have.
that name.
Yeah.
But no, there's lots of exciting stuff coming up in 2024. So I hope that you will stick with us. I'll give you over to you, Rob, because I think we should wrap up there.
Yeah. So as always, it's good to be back. The boys are back in town. Please remember to hit that subscribe button, leave us a lovely review, put in your review. I can't believe the boys are back in town at last. And join us next week as we take a trip to the Amazon for the Video Nasty Cannibal Holocaust. See you then. We probably will get gobbled alive. Goodbye.